I didn't realise I'd read this many 2026 horror books already, but apparently I have. Hey my fellow weirdos, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am going through today some 2026 horror books that are released this year, obviously 2026. And I'm going to tell you what they're all about, what my favourites are, which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like. And I think we're in for a good year. Now, if you haven't come across my channel before, I'm Anna. I read all types of horror, but I absolutely love the psychological, the transgressive, the feminist, and the traditional. But today we are not going traditional, we are going for new releases. One of these books is my actual favourite author, favourite book, favourite ever. If you know me, you might be able to take a guess which one. There are two other books along with this stack that I'm going to go through, as I received those as digital arcs from either the author or NetGalley, so thank you for that. Let's just start. Let's just go for it. Oh, and be sure to like and subscribe if you like this video. It really helps me out. Now let's go through the digital arcs first. The first book, I'm not going to go into too much detail as I do have a whole separate review for this, which I will link. And that is Molka by Monika Kim. Now, this book comes out in April, and this, if you haven't read Monika Kim before, she has previously done a book called The Eyes Are the Best Part, which I very much enjoyed too. Now, this is her second book, and what I love about Monika Kim's work is she always has something to say, and she executes it in such an accessible and fun way. The content of this book is very serious, and it could be considered very like dark, but the way that she writes, it flows well. She's able to create great characters, which just reflects her absolute talent with writing. I have enjoyed both of these books. Molka is a Korean word, and it's basically a word which translates to hidden cameras, which is something that's very prominent in South Korea. Like, there's a lot of issues with mainly men, hiding these cameras to capture women in sort of obviously precarious positions. So this man who has hidden these cameras in the workplace, in the bathroom, and he observes and uses the cameras to watch women. We follow a few stories in this book. We have our main protagonist, her name is Dahlia, and this is a female revenge story, female rage story. She's had a couple of things that's happened to her in her life, and she's just over it. Like I say, I will link the other video in this post. I don't have to go into too much detail, as it's all on that other video. But I rated this book 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And although, yeah, the topic is quite serious and explicit, and it is infuriating, the way the author gets these topics across, I have not seen another author do it quite like Monika Kim, especially because there aren't any horror books, to my knowledge anyway, that cover this particular topic. If you do know of any, please let me know, be sure to comment. But I am absolutely obsessed with her ability to bring these topics to light in such an engaging way. So definitely recommend this book, watch out for it. And also the cover is gorgeous. I'm gonna have to buy the physical of this, definitely. Second e-book, I actually am a subscriber to this author's Patreon. So if you are a fan of this author and you're not aware they have a Patreon, definitely get on that, because I wasn't aware, and as soon as I found out, I was like, yes, I am joining that. So this is David Sodergren's new book, The Suffering. Now, David Sodergren is such a talented indie author. He writes sort of like pulp, classic, old school type horror. It's horror that I don't want to diminish his books, but it's just like so easy to consume, so easy to read. I think his ability to write in different perspectives and different characters, he's written so many different types of characters. His character work is absolutely insane, and I think that's the main thing which stands out in his work. But he has done some, not only a variety of characters, not only a variety of characters, but a variety of like styles of horror and settings. So there really is something in his work for everybody. So, okay, this book is The Suffering. He has got so many, he's got so much going on at the minute. Like, he's working on loads of books, which I'm obsessed over. So this one comes out in May, and this is set in, this is like a historical horror. It's set in the early 1900s, I believe. Well, don't quote me on that because I'm not entirely sure, but it's set in the Italian mountains on a convent in the middle of nowhere. So there's a bunch of nuns. There is a doctor which pays them a visit every year before winter kicks in because they're in the middle of nowhere, so it's hard to get up and down the mountain. So he checks in, but on his arrival or on his way to the convent, he discovers a really, really sick woman laid, like dying pretty much. So he decides to take her to the convent and nurse her to health, look after her. But there's an outbreak, so things just go a little bit insane, let's just say that. So yeah, my thoughts on this book is kind of like a bit of an apocalyptic but very atmospheric horror. So I've not really read anything quite like this before. I haven't read a lot of nun horror, and David Sodergren himself says he's based it on like 1960s pulp, hammer, nun films. That's what he said in the acknowledgements, which I haven't watched any of those either, which I really am intrigued. He has the best film recs as well, like for old school horror. So it is honestly worth checking him out just for his film recommendations alone. But yeah, I thought this was a whole lot of fun. The first 20%, first 30%, it's like just setting the tone, and then bam, shit kicks off. And it just goes a bit wild. Some of the imagery in this, guys, oh my god. It is verging on extreme horror. Like, his work tends to verge on extreme horror. He has, within his books, he has written books which are more extreme than others. This one, I would say, it is just like on the verge, because you have still got like the historical, the atmospheric elements, but then some of the imagery that goes into when some of the kills are just insane. And it does really remind me of like sort of an old school horror film. Yeah, I absolutely love David Sodergren, and I will read anything that he puts out there. I am trying to get through his backlog. There is a lot of books. I haven't read them all. But if you want me to do like a ranking video or a video of books that I have read by him, because like I say, they all range in sort of characters and like when they're set. One of my absolute favourites, and this is probably like a lot of people's favourites, but the Har, Muriel. If you know Muriel, then she is the ultimate. I also really enjoyed his book called Rotten Tommy, and I feel like that's a bit more of there's a lot more conflicting views on that book. I think mainly because of the ending. But yeah, one of the characters in that, she is called, I think she's actually called Anna. Imagine that, me forgetting what the main character is called if she's actually called Anna. My memory is shocking. But yeah, so she's autistic, and just, I think the way he's able to humanize these characters, I just think it's so he's got such a talent for writing. And honestly, yeah, some of his covers as well, absolutely incredible. Definitely an indie horror author you need to get on if you haven't read any of his books. I highly, highly recommend him. I can't say that enough. So yeah, this is definitely worth picking up as well, guys. Yeah, especially if you're into like classic horror, but you want something that's like, maybe you've read loads of classic horror. Obviously, there's only so many classic horrors out there. This is an author that is doing that, which you can absolutely get into. So yeah, definitely recommend. So the next book I'm going to talk about, let's go through the physical stack. So Nowhere Burning by Catriona Ward. Now, again, I believe I did a mini review of this in my January wrap-up. So I'm not going to go into loads and loads of detail, but unfortunately this one wasn't for me. I wanted to try this just on the premise of hearing about this author so much, especially The Last House on Needless Street. I've not read this author. This is the first book that I've experienced. I know her work kind of verges on like the thriller style, and thrillers are always a bit of a hit and miss for me. I'm very fussy when it comes to thrillers, so I wasn't anticipating, I wasn't expecting much, and I know that sounds bad, but I just wasn't. But what I was expecting was a little bit more of the horror. I do think the way that it's been marketed has been like a crossover between a horror and a thriller. I didn't really get that as much. I was kind of getting a lot of the, if you're into mystery thrillers, then especially like atmospheric ones, then this might be for you. But unfortunately, they're not really my jam. I've read a few of them, and there's just something that I just can't get on board with a mystery thriller. I don't know what it is. I think for me, the atmosphere and the gore has to balance quite well, and this didn't have like a lot of gore in it. There was maybe like a scene or two in this, which I was like, yeah, fair enough. But and yeah, there's a lot of POVs in this, so again, I couldn't really get on board with them. The characters weren't very likable, and I couldn't, and the whole time I felt like he was trying to solve what was actually going on in this book. It's set in the Rocky Mountains, and it's essentially about this place where children go and they go missing, and you're following like a couple of different storylines in this. To be completely honest with you, I don't actually remember this book, and I guess that just, obviously I didn't really love it. It got to the ending and I just thought, is that it? Is that the twist? Definitely a me problem. I think it just comes down to my taste in books for this, and unfortunately I just didn't really get on with this. I don't think I would be jumping to read any of Catriona Ward's other books, but let me know if you think that she has some more horror adjacent ones. Yeah, unfortunately not for me. I think out of the stack this is probably the lowest rated one, but yeah, unfortunate that I did not get on with this. Let's talk about a book I wasn't expecting to love, which I did, and that is The Caretaker by Markus Kliewer. Now, I read, can't speak. Now, I read We Used to Live Here last year, or whenever it was released, and I didn't really, if I'm being honest, like I didn't really get that book. Like there was times where I was lost. I didn't know what the hell was happening. It had a good start. It had an amazing start. I remember that, and then it kind of just went a bit it kind of just went on a bit of a tangent for me, and I had no clue what was going on really, and I wouldn't be able to recall what actually happened in that book. So I was a bit, when going into this book, I was like, right, I'm going to try this author out again, because I didn't think that book was terrible. I just thought it was a me problem. I'm not understanding what this book is trying to say. So I thought, yeah, I'll give this a go. Obviously, the publisher sent me this as well, but I did ask for it because I wanted to specifically try it. Now, this comes out in April, I believe. I think it comes out in April. Yeah, 23rd of April. And this is, I love this book. So this, I would say, is a crossover between a horror and a thriller. It honestly reminded me of The Housemaid by Frida McFadden at the start, and although it doesn't continue on that path, like it's a totally different book, that's obviously a very domestic book. This is like a psychological, yeah, I would say like psychological ritual book. But I think basically because we start off with a young woman who is in a very bad financial position. She's very desperate for a job. She is trying to look after her younger sister, and she gets this job house sitting for this house like in the middle of nowhere. She has to get public transport from her town to this house, and it's a little bit of a mission. She gets a bus, and then she has to walk up this like massive hill to there's like quite a few there's quite a few houses which are set back, a very affluent area, and then she goes for the interview at this house, and there's this older woman and spewing off some really weird rules about what this job entails, and it involves following some very weird rites. Follow the rights. That is what is blurbed on this book. So Macy, who is applying for the job, she kind of backs out, but then as with any job, the homeowner offers a very substantial amount of money, and this job's only for 3 days. So Macy does think it's a bit weird, but she's also thinking, I need the cash money dollar. So we get into this book, and Macy has to follow the rights. It's a strange one, this, because I think I said it was psychological, but I should have said it was supernatural, because it's both. Like, essentially you go into this book thinking that it's like a supernatural book, and then I think what the author does is so clever, and obviously I can't go into it because it's a major spoiler, but I think we think it's supernatural. It ends up being a psychological experience, and I absolutely loved this book. I think as well the ending, I think that people will be divided about the ending, but for me, it's my type of ending. We get sort of like an ambiguity throughout this entire book, which I absolutely loved. Constantly guessing throughout what these rights could possibly mean. I enjoyed Macy's character. I think that she was written quite well, although it isn't a character-driven book. It's very much a fast-paced horror thriller book, so there's not too much character work going on. But the relationship between her and her sister was depicted very well. It's very relatable. Yeah, I flew through this book. I absolutely flew through this book. To be honest, if you said to me that I would love this book, I would have been surprised, because I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. As much as I did. And I have heard as well, after reading this, that Sydney Sweeney's going to play Macy because it's getting produced into a film, and Sydney Sweeney's going to play Macy. And I was a bit freaked out by that, because obviously she played whoever the main character is in The Housemaid, and I was just like, okay, well, immediately this book kind of gave me Housemaid vibes, but for horror fans. So yeah, I think if you're into like ritualistic horror, creepy imagery, there were parts of this book which I was really creeped out about. Obviously it's set in a house, so that probably is why, but yeah, it was giving haunted house energy as well. So I would definitely recommend this book. If you are after a page turner, this one, because it is so fast paced, and honestly you could probably get through this. I think I read this in like a day or two. I just couldn't put it down. It's one of those books that you can't put down. So highly recommend this, and I will be reading more from this author. I think this is his second book, so I will be reading his third book. Yeah, definitely one to have on your TBRs, this. Okay, next book. I absolutely begged the publisher to send me this because I devoured this author's other book. This is Medea Sang Mia Corrido. I'm probably butchering that. But this is by Delia della Cerda. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. But the author wrote Reservoir Bitches, and I think that was released. Well, it's translated. So that was translated. The UK edition was translated, I believe it was last year. Absolutely loved that book. I highly recommend it. It covers like the femicide in Mexico, so it's like very feminist horror. And there's like it's a collection of like interconnected stories, and as is this one, but with the twist that, so it kind of focuses on like the cartel in Mexico, a lot of socialist issues, and mainly woman focused, as there is a lot of stuff that goes on with women, but there are some male centered stories in this as well. And it has, each story has the involvement and the influence of Medea being the Greek sorceress who famously murders over vengeance. But there's so much more to her story, and I feel like the way that this book depicts women in these certain situations, they're often situations which women are looked down upon in society, or they're not like traditional situations that they're in, and they choose, for example, like abortion. A woman would choose to abort a baby. She's not seen in society as the best possible woman. And I think this story integrates the famous Greek mythology bad bitch essentially into these stories. It's very clever, and I would love to see more Greek mythology integrated into horror. But yeah, this is not necessarily a horror book. It is, I would say it's more like a gothic transgressive book, if I'm being very specific about it, because it goes into like a lot of social and political issues and like feminist issues as well. I absolutely loved this book. Like, the more I think about it, the more I think, wow, absolutely incredible. It's one of those books as well that you could probably reread, because the way it's written, like, there's so much to pick up on. So these stories are all like separate stories, but they are interconnected in ways. Some of the characters get mentioned in other stories, and the conclusion this book comes to, so we get like a full Medea story at the end, and I absolutely devoured it. So yeah, I think if you like any of what I've just talked about, then definitely pick this up. I rated this one 4.5 stars, I believe, but I think the more I think about it, the more I'm going to change that to 5 stars, because absolutely sensational. So talented, this author, and the fact that this is translated as well, it just makes me think, like, obviously so I do this, I don't mention who translated it, I need to. So this, obviously, the author, I said Delia della Cerda. It's translated by Julia Sanchez and Heather Cleary. So they've done such a great job with this, and this comes out in August. I need more by this author. I need them to translate more. I'm sure that this author's done quite a lot of work. And yeah, I just know that it's going to get translated. And oh my god, I've not even shown you the back. How stunning is that? So I'm going to, this isn't the actual cover, this is a proof copy. So I will insert a picture of the actual cover. Is so stunning as well. This publisher is Scribe, by the way, just so you know. And I believe that they have an office in London and they have an office in Australia as well, which is quite good to know. I find that quite fascinating. And yeah, so the author is got a bit about the author at the back. It says Dahlia de la Cerda is a writer and activist based in, I can't say that word, I'll put it up on screen, in Mexico basically. She's the author of Reservoir Bitches, which was longlisted for the 2025 International Booker Prize. I feel like this is going to get a nomination. In fact, no, I don't know if they've already nominated for the 2026. Maybe like 2027, I don't know. It's Spanish original. Again, I'm not going to say that name. Won the 2019. It won a 2019 award. De la Cerda is also the co-founder of the feminist organisation Moras Help Moras. So yeah, that clocks. So yeah, if you like gothic books, which cover topics like about the Mexico cartel, femicide, it has like magical realism elements in this. It's horrific at times. It covers topics of abortion, motherhood, grief. Definitely pick this one up. In fact, I'm just telling you to pick it up anyway because I'm obsessed with it. Absolutely outstanding. Next book I'm going to talk about, this is already out by the way, so this is Tradwife by Saratoga Schaefer. This is like a modern day Rosemary's Baby. So again, I would class this as a cross between a horror and a thriller. This follows a woman who, she's a young woman, she's in her early 20s to mid 20s. She's in this relationship with this man, and they move to the suburbs for a new life, essentially. She wants to be a tradwife. She's got some very like tradwife viewpoints in her mind. She thinks that women are designed to please their husbands and their partners, and stays at home. She doesn't work, but she has like a social media presence, and it's all based on her tradwife beliefs essentially. And like there's a community of her and her peers online, and she uses that platform as like a support network, but also for tips and tricks of how to be a better tradwife. As we start with them moving to this new neighbourhood. She doesn't really know anyone. She's very isolated. Her husband works every day, but we soon learn that he's working very long hours a lot of the time, and he is coming home, just eating his tea, going to bed, not wanting to interact with her. So yeah, we follow the perspective of Camille, and she really, more than anything, wants a baby. Unfortunately, her husband doesn't want to do the act before that you kind of need to do if you want to have a baby. So she keeps trying to hint, but because she has this viewpoint that she can't be outspoken, she can't challenge her husband on why he doesn't want to have sex with her, and we'll probably know as a reader that he's getting it from somewhere if he's not getting it from her, and all he wants is the occasional BJ. So she is not going to get pregnant that way. So what essentially happens is, if you don't want any spoilers, fast forward this bit, but she essentially has sex with a demon and she gets pregnant with a demon baby. This book was a lot of fun, and there's some very, very gory elements to this. Like, there's some gory scenes in this. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was a good time. Do I think it needed to be however many pages as it is? I think it's like 300 pages. I don't think so. I see this as a very much like a 200 page book. Like, I think there's probably a lot of pages you could cut out of this. It did tend to go off on one in places. I think it was necessary. We learnt a lot about Camille and her as a character, but then there was a slump in the middle, and I just don't think that it needed to be this long. But despite that, I do recommend this because I did have a lot of fun with it. If you're into like body horror, feminist books, if you've read Rosemary's Baby and you enjoyed it, then you're probably going to enjoy this. And it was a fun time. This, I believe, came out last month in February. So yeah, one for your TBR there. This book is a debut, and that is Odessa by Gabrielle Sher. Now, I think this comes out in April. Yeah, 21st of April. There's a lot of books that are coming out in April. But yeah, this is historical. It's a historical gothic, I would say. And it's set in Russia in the early 1900s. And it follows a family who is Jewish and their situation back then fighting the forces. So it's set in the height of the pogroms, basically. And this family has to resort to ancient magic to get their revenge and get their comeuppance. This follows the several point of views of the family, and we have a very strong young perspective of the daughter in this family, and she's called Yetta. I absolutely loved her character. I thought she was fierce. I loved her. We have a lot of situations and a lot of difficult situations in this. The writing style was so descriptive and so beautiful. Like, if you're into like folk horror, because a lot of the descriptions and a lot of the horror, the body horror, it has body horror in this. It does relate to the environment, and I love how the author dealt with that. Because there's ancient magic in this, like, it's how magic connects to our senses, but also obviously it covers the horrible incidents which did happen back then. So yeah, it's a great merge of genres, I think, this. So yeah, if you're into gothic, folk, historical, feminist, with body horror, then I would definitely check this out. And the cover is absolutely stunning. It might give you a little bit of an indication about what happens to Yetta. Let's just leave it there. I highly recommend this book. Next book I read was Bodies of Work by Mcleod Chapman. I am such a fan of this author. Like, I love Mcleod Chapman's work. He's a weird horror writer. All of his books tend to be quite different. So he's written one that is quite like a southern gothic with body horror, but he's also written like some like apocalyptic style, grief ridden books as well. This one is more like a psychological, surreal book, I would say. We follow a serial killer called Winston, and I love a serial killer. Not a serial killer like themselves. I love a book about a serial killer. Let's just clarify that. But yeah, so he has essentially been killing the young women, collecting like mementos, or trophies they're called, obviously, of his killings, and he collects them in his house. Well, as time goes on, one day they start to talk back and have their own voice. He took their voice, and then they start speaking to him. I thought this book was quite surreal in parts, like the way it's written. It's not very straightforward, I would say, and it is only like a short book. I enjoyed this book, but I think it could have been developed a little bit more. I feel like this could have been a longer book. So I wouldn't say that it was like Clay's best work. I definitely would recommend Ghost Eaters by him if you haven't read that book. I loved that. And he has done short stories before, which I very much enjoyed, but for me, for some reason, this didn't hit as much as I was expecting it to. That's not to say that it's a bad book by any means, but yeah, there's something that I can't put my finger on with this. And maybe it is the writing style, because it is a little bit surreal in places. So maybe it just wasn't going in some of the writing. But yeah, I absolutely adore this cover. And also, oh my god, so Titan sent me this, and they sent me a bookmark, and obviously the cover inside is so nice. When does this release? That is the question. It might already be out, I believe, because if they've sent me a finished edition, that would probably mean that it's out. But yeah, I do recommend this author so much. I absolutely love Clay Mcleod Chapman. He needs to come to the UK, so I can get all my books signed by him. And yeah, I think this is I think it's like my 4th book that I've read by him now. I've read his collection Acquired Taste, I've read Ghost Eaters, I've read What Kind of Mother, I've read another book of his as well, the apocalyptic book, which I forgot. I'll probably just insert a picture. And I have read one of his short stories in one of my favourite collections of last year as well, which I will put on screen. I absolutely loved that. But yeah, I would still recommend this. I would still give it a try, and I definitely do recommend Clay Mcleod Chapman as an author. Next book, I read this last year, and this is one of my favourite books. And it was in my stack of favourite books of 2025. But obviously I can't put it in my stack for this year because it was already in my stack for last year, even though the books come out this year. I hate that. I hate having that crossover because I like to have a year and just get done with the year. But because I read this last year and it comes out this year, do you see my dilemma? I don't know. That's just a me issue. Anyway, it is Wretch by LaRocca. Now, I had the absolute privilege of going to see LaRocca last year in October. I saw him in London in Forbidden Planet, and he is such a sweetheart, honestly. The way he talks about all of his books, oh, I'm obsessed, honestly. I was proper fangirling. It was probably quite embarrassing. But he's just one of those authors where, you know, everyone has an author where you meet them and you're just a bit like, oh my god, I actually don't have any words to say to you, which is quite embarrassing. That was me and LaRocca, essentially. I went with a massive stack of books, and thankfully Saga Press sent me this a few weeks previous to that, and I was like, I think I was like one of the first people to receive an ARC for this, which I feel so privileged about, because when I got this signed by Eric, he did say, how did you get this book? And I was like, I don't know. I literally don't know. I kind of just shoot my shot because Saga Press was already sending me a book, and I just said, you don't so happen to have Wretch, do you? Because I would do anything for that book. I want to read it. And I'm just going to show you the signature as well. But yeah, anyway, so this book, So Eric has done like a few novels now. He was famous for his short stories, and he did so many like amazing short story collections. And then he's done Wretch, he's done We Are Always Tender with Our Dead, which is another full-length novel. And then he has done, I'm so bad with names, I don't know, but I'll put it on screen. This is described as, so I would describe Eric's work as transgressive. It's transgressive, but it's also splatterpunk. It's like extreme. There's a lot of graphic depictions in his book, and he doesn't hold back with his writing style and what he wants to say. Now, this is a grief horror, I would class it as, but it has been pitched as like a tech gothic. As you can see, the cover, it's like got that very like 70s influence. I'm absolutely obsessed with this cover. We follow Simon, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. I should have probably clarified that before this. And he has lost his husband, he's grieving, he is going through a whole process. He is becoming a very, probably like, he's becoming like probably the worst version of himself. And one day he comes across this group called the Wretches, who are all grieving, they've all lost somebody, and their process of grieving is taking photos and trying to spot their loved ones in the photo. I really love that element of this book. I feel like that kind of dips into very old surreal type photography, and how when some photos were first produced and some photos were first edited, a lot of people were believing what they were seeing, what has been captured. So these early photos from like the 1900s, called, I think it was the Cottingley Fairies, and it's a really famous image, you might know it, and it's essentially this young girl with some fairies, and for so long people were believing that those fairies were real. They weren't. Of course, they were edited, but many people believed it, and that aspect of this book reminded me of that so much. So essentially this group take Simon to this weird character called a porcelain core, and a lot of surreal things unfold after that. I think this book just depicts grief so well, but what I loved about this, it was like not a typical grief horror. There were so many other elements to this, like the Wretches, the group The Wretches. I loved The Wretches. I feel like they could have their own like sort of spin-off book. But Simeon was such a flawed character and such a flawed person, and he wasn't the best, but also it was he was very real, he was very human. Some of his thoughts and his thoughts were very harsh, very dark, but I think he was like such a relatable depiction of what it's like to grieve. Eric LaRocca absolutely nailed that aspect of this book. I could talk about this book all day. I will be going on about it all day. Actually, I'm so obsessed with it. I'm so obsessed with any book that Eric LaRocca's done. I absolutely loved We Are Always Tender with Our Dead as well, which is a series that was also in my top stack of 2025, and the next book of that series comes out this year, so I'm so excited for that. But yeah, this was amazing, and this comes out, I believe it comes out next week, so we're on the 21st of March, so yeah, I think it comes out on the 25th. Absolutely love this. If you're a fan of Eric LaRocca, then definitely check it out. I read all types of horror. This is a little more on the extreme, like the more transgressive side, so obviously like check content warnings beforehand. But yeah, definitely recommend this book. Eric LaRocca's like my favourite author, I'd say. Definitely up there with one of my favourite authors. And it says here, Eric LaRocca is a modern day Clive Barker. So that says it all, really. I do think his work is very adjacent to Clive Barker. Yeah, queer transgressive horror. Love it. Now lastly, this is a book that I haven't finished yet. I am about 30% of the way through of this book, but I just wanted to include it in here as it's a bit of an anomaly. I can't say that word. It's a bit of an anomaly because I think this is out this month or next month, but it is a re-release, so it's a republished version, and that is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. Now, I think this initially got published in 2015, so thankfully I managed to grab a copy of this before they took it off. But it is getting published again this year. I don't know why. I don't know why they do that. Maybe it's just for like more exposure or something and more money. Who knows? Enlighten me if you know. But yeah, this is a historical, like medieval horror, and it's like horror. I'd say it's horror fantasy. It's set in the mid 1300s, in the height of the plague in Europe, and it follows a knight. There's a lot of characters in this, but the main character is the knight, called Thomas, as he discovers a young woman one day, and she basically tells him that there's going to be a war between heaven and hell on earth, and of course he has to go on an expedition because that is what happens in fantasy books. But yeah, they essentially have to get out of the way of the plague, which is happening in various locations, so they have to always be on the move essentially, to escape this plague, because as soon as you get the plague, you're dead. The imagery in this is very, I'd say, don't know, some of it reminded me of like Pirates of the Caribbean, but I haven't read a book like this. The only comparison I have so far to it would be The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, but obviously that book only came out last year. So yeah, very horror, medieval, fantasy adjacent, and I am enjoying my time reading this. The reason why I'm reading this is, well, not the only reason, but I've wanted to read it for a while. I've heard great things about it, but I am off to see Christopher Buehlman in Edinburgh next week, which I am so excited about. So I will be getting some like Edinburgh book content of the event. I might just do, depending on what it's like in there, I might just do like a few clips. But yeah, I want to do like an Edinburgh vlog and vlog some of the bookshops there, because I've been before and it is such an incredible bookshop. It's an incredible city for independent bookshops, and of course it's so gothic. The architecture is absolutely amazing. I would probably live in Edinburgh if I could. Such a beautiful city. I would highly recommend if you've not been before. But yeah, their independent bookshops are pretty good, and I purposely booked a hotel which is 5 minutes away from one of them because I was like, I need to be near a bookshop. There's probably a haul coming, although I'm trying to be good because I've got too many books to read. But there's probably a haul coming and sort of like a bookshop vlog coming. But yeah, I am enjoying this book so far, and I can't wait to hear about why, the ins and outs of this book, why the author wrote it, and I can't wait to hear him speak about it. So yeah, absolutely I'm enjoying this book. So yeah, you might be able to get your hands on it. There's always probably a second-hand copy you can get. If not, it does come out soon, I believe. So yeah, they're all the books that I have read that come out in 2026. There are so many, but let me know out of this stack which one you would read, because there's so many books that are coming out in 2026. I might have to do a separate video of highly anticipated releases, because there are a couple more that I've received ARCs for, or ones that I really, really want to read that sound incredible. From the top of my head, Paul Tremblay's new book, which is based around AI, which I am definitely excited for. I know Tremblay does an amazing job of depicting very horrific things. I feel like that book is going to really scare me, because obviously it's what's happening in the real world right now. There's a lot of conversation about AI. Anyway, that is a separate issue. Let me know if you'd want to see a video like that. Let me know which books you've read, which books you want to read, what videos you want to see from me. The next time you see me, I will probably be in Edinburgh, or it'll probably be a video that's based around Edinburgh. And yeah, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Anyway, I'll see you all later, weirdos. Bye.